Let me ask you a question, John. If I told you right now to walk up to any one of these books, now not physically, but mentally, and I want you to flip it open to any page, to look at that page and to go back and forth and stop at any word, can you see this happening? Close your eyes and in your mind's eye, envision that occurring. I want to show them at home because people will say later that I changed what I wrote somehow.
All right.
Open your eyes. What was that word?
Hell, dude. This is not staged. This is crazy. I'm blown away. All right, welcome back to Storytime with MrBallen. This was such a hit on the last episode with Tom Segura that we decided we would do more. And today's guest, I got to be honest, they're going to blow your mind. Seriously, I went into this experience sort of skeptical. I mean, the things this person does are sort of impossible. I mean, he goes in front of these audiences, which include huge celebrities and professional sports teams, and effectively reads their minds. He certainly blows their minds. And he does it under so much pressure, and he nails it every time. And so we asked him on the show. He's got some amazing stories, and he also truly I have something written on my hand right now that has to do with one of the tricks that he pulled on me, and it's just, I can't believe how this episode went. So really stick around. He's an amazing guy and just a master of his craft. He's going to blow your mind. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode.
I'm Oz the Mentalist. I'm here on Storytime with MrBallen. I already know what you're thinking. Stick around.
All right, Oz the Mentalist Perlman.
Yeah.
So you are the world's greatest mentalist. I mean, lately I have seen you pop up all over the place. You were just on Joe Rogan and his reaction to when he guesses his
Pissed
ATM.
off. Joe, you have not seen him that angry in a while. You know, he goes down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theories and he was like, did you hack me? Have you literally gotten into my life? How did you get my PIN code?
I liked how you were like, hey, let's just be spontaneous. You're like, look, I'm gonna try to guess your ATM PIN code. And you can just see it on Joe. He's like, okay, all right, let's see. And you guessed the first number at some point. You're like, just tell me, is it 1? I think it was 1.
Yep.
And he's like, all right. But then as soon as you began doing it, you could just see his whole mentality, everything shifted. And you can just see as the audience, if this is staged, it's the best staging I've ever seen, because his reaction was not pleasure. It was like, stop.
How'd I do, Joe? Is that your ATM PIN code?
Yeah. That's weird. I'm skeptical because I've got that PIN code in the mail. You know?
People loved seeing it because with Joe, he is the ultimate debunker.
Yeah.
Are we in agreement? Like, no one's going on Joe Rogan and telling Joe what to do.
No.
On the biggest platform in the world, that he is the boss, and he didn't know what was going to happen. And I think that's what captivated the public. Is if he would have been amazed, that's one thing, but he was angry and a little scared.
So tell me, like, what is a mentalist?
Right.
Because I've looked it up.
Yeah.
But that doesn't really accomplish the task here. I want to hear from you. And secondarily, how does one know they have the skill to be a mentalist?
So a mentalist is a form of magic, right?
Okay.
This is not in the world of psychics and supernatural. That's not what I pretend to do. I completely make sure that I go out of my way to ensure people understand I'm not claiming to be a psychic. I'm not supernatural. Instead, I have a series of skills that I've developed, kind of like an arsenal of tools over decades of learning how people think, and it's grounded in magic. So everyone knows what a magician is, right? You could go to an 8-year-old, they've started to see magic tricks. And when we watch magic, we understand that we're being fooled with our eyes. Somehow this person knows how to do things quickly or to distract me so they do something somewhere else, right? When you cut the woman in half, spoiler alert, guys, I'm not trying to ruin Christmas. There's no Santa Claus. You're not really cutting the woman in half. Somehow you're deceiving me with an illusion. That's the name of the word. That's really what it's called. So magic is all about misdirection and fooling the eyes. This is a specialized subset within magic where it's magic of the mind. Very different. I'm not fooling your eyes because there's no fast hands. There's almost no props. I can show up. I had a show last night in Toronto. Came right here from the airport where I did a show. It was a smaller group, about 400 people. And I show up with nothing. I have a pad of paper and a marker, which if I don't have with me, they can grab for me.
Yeah.
The show isn't props. I'm the show. And so what I've learned to do is know how people think. And by knowing effectively how people think, I'll know what they think. And I'll present that in a very entertaining, fooling, and hopefully memorable manner. So mentalism is psychology, misdirection, deception, influence. It's all these different skills baked into one cake.
And is this something that you always knew you possessed? Some skills that ultimately crystallized and became you being the world's greatest mentalist.
Right. Thank you.
Did you have moments in your life before this became a thing where you're like, I have these innate skills that I
Sure.
could refine, but you knew you had them? Or is this something that people could be taught?
Absolutely, people can be taught. So this is
Really?
a learnable skill, but I would liken it to musical talent, which is innate in a sense, which is you could probably learn to play the piano and do a certain number of songs. Like my 9-year-old plays the piano. If I continued practicing every day for a year, I'd probably get better. But what if I practiced for a decade? Would I ever be good enough to play at Carnegie Hall in New York City? I don't think I would. I think that it's not in me, that innate, God-given gift, whatever you want to call it. You can develop the skills, but will you get to a certain level? There might be a ceiling.
Sure.
So that's the best way to describe it. I have a gift for it, and I've also been very, very persistent, and never underestimate the power of persistence, because mentalism has a steep learning curve, and most people don't have thick enough skin to get through the times when you suck. So magic can be practiced over and over and over in a mirror, and you can improve because it's move-based. It's kind of like playing golf. If you practice your swing, hopefully by the millionth swing, you're gonna be great. You might not be Rory McIlroy or Tiger Woods. With this, the only way that I can get better is by doing it for an audience. Do you see what I mean? You can't practice guessing what people are gonna think without people. And the first few 100 times you do it, you're gonna eat, pardon my French, you're gonna eat shit. Like you're not gonna be good. There's very few mentalists that started good. And so what tends to happen is you perform, you suck, you go, oh my God, that was painful. I don't wanna do that again. I don't wanna experience that suffering. So I did much more magic for years. And then I started dipping my toes in the water of mentalism and then doing a little more and then doing a little more. And then I was on a show, if we like rewind my career, there was a moment where it was like a fork in the road where I was on America's Got Talent.
Of course.
Changed my life. And I rebranded myself as, instead of like, quote unquote, O's the magician, I became O's the mentalist. That's how I literally monikered it, because now I differentiated myself from others and decided I'm not doing magic anymore. That was like the crutch. I just started doing just mentalism.
That's interesting. I think one of the things that I've noticed about you and your rise that's currently up and to the right, you really are killing it right now, is in a way, I feel like I can relate a little bit to the pressure that you put on yourself. And I'll give you some context. So I know that you're into distance running, in addition to like serious distance running. This dude's done like 153 miles.
It's true.
Regularly runs marathons on a whim. It is a physical feat, no doubt. But it is a mental feat more than anything else.
Agreed. It's more mental than physical. Anybody who tells me, oh, I can't do this, I'm like, that you already set yourself up. I can't. You've already created an obstacle in your mind. It's the wrong viewpoint, and your mind translates into your body. So you telling yourself that creates that. I think, the mind controls the body. I've seen people that are 20, 30 years older than me finish a race that I didn't finish. Objectively, I'm fitter than they are, I'm younger than they are, I'm stronger than they are. Why did they finish when I didn't? Because my mind crumbled.
Yeah.
And you know it. I mean, buds, how many people rang that bell?
A lot.
That were probably tough SOBs, but they didn't have it mentally.
It's true. And in fact, you had said that when you first tried the Spartathlon, 'cause you did it twice, right?
I did it twice.
So the Spartathlon's 153 miles,
Yep,
right?
153 miles, 36-hour cutoff. So it's very important. There's races that are longer. Right now, there's a heyday of people running 200-mile races, all this crazy stuff. But this, you can't slow down and walk very much. Like in these other races, they're glorified hikes. No offense to all these people who do 200s. They do it for 4 or 5 days.
Right.
Most of the people are, it's slow. This is running nonstop for a day and a half. You start on a Saturday morning, I'm running till Sunday evening.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And so like what people need to understand about running really long distances, I've done a couple marathons. And marathon is 26.2 miles.
Which is very respectable.
Totally. It's respectable.
Don't you talk down on yourself.
But when you hit about mile 20, people say that's sort of like the halfway point, even though it's not. 26.2, the halfway is 13.
Right.
But at about 20 miles is when your body sort of reaches that point where it's like, okay, we've lost all the glucose stores. We're sort of burning on muscle at this point. It's like you're falling apart. And I remember when I ran a marathon and I hit mile 20, it was like I can barely move and I have 6 miles to go.
Right.
So for anyone that's even thinking, oh, 153 miles, yeah, you just suck it up and go. That's not how that works. This is like a mental test of magnitudes you may not understand. But you had said if the first time you did the Spartathlon, you did not finish.
Didn't finish.
And you knew as you're running along, you're like, I'm not going to finish this.
Right.
And you're writing the story in your head that you're like, how am I going to spin this to the people that, they expected me to finish and I didn't.
Yes.
But you went back and you ultimately did it again and you
Right.
finished it. That's so highly unusual. One,
Right.
that you went after it in the first place, but two, that you went back and did the race. I think that says a lot about not only your mental toughness, but why you have these innate skills. You've honed those skills to become the mentalist that you are. But you obviously have this ability to put yourself in these highly mentally stressful environments and perform not just well, but at your literal best.
Right.
And so, like, dude, you go in front of an entire NFL football team. And these are also clips you got to check out if you haven't seen them, like the Bengals. You go the
one of my favorites.
And like he'll tell the players, like the quarterback Joe Burrow, and he's like, I'm going to write down who you're going to throw it to, and I'm not going to show you. You're going to do it. Throw it to anybody in the room. And then after you do it, I'm going to show you what I thought. And like the clip, you see that he's written down a name. And sure enough, he turns, he throws the football, and everyone's like, oh, he guessed it right. But then the next time you do it, you write down 2 names. And it's like, he's going to fake to this person and throw to this person, and you're holding it back. And sure enough, Joe, who clearly has no idea what you've written down,
Right.
fake, throw, room goes wild.
Tanner.
Fakes to Jamar, throws to Tanner.
How do you put yourself in that position consistently and just stay calm enough to do those things when the outcome's binary? That's so stressful. How do you do it?
So I think your mindset, and this is where the ultra running and the mentalism go hand in hand, and I think each one has improved the other. Truly, there's physiological things involved, which being able to be calm under pressure, that calmness directly creates the success in the situation, which is when you start panicking, those chemicals that flood through your body can indicate to other people the same way that animals can smell fear. They can literally smell fear. I think we still have that hardwired in us. We are still animals in a sense where we don't trust our instincts, but we can feel it. Like right now, if somebody walks in the room, even if you don't know that they're there, you have situational awareness where you can sense somebody walked in. How is that, right? It's not sonar. There's something in you that I don't know how we explain that's a sense that can indicate danger, which I'm sure you've had. You can sense on high alert and something floods you because that fight or flight. So in those situations where it's do or die, not literally, but if that screws up in that room, there's no safety net. This football team didn't walk in and get set up and say, hey guys, act excited for this random dude.
No.
Joe Burrow, the funny part about that clip was the day it dropped, the day before he signed the most lucrative contract in NFL history, $275 million with some obscene number that was guaranteed, like $184 million, fact check me. So the best comment, the comment that run up the most was go, dude, he clearly paid this guy to do it. And then my comment under to this guy was, bro, I wish I had enough money to pay Joe Burrow off to pretend to do this. And it got up like 10,000 times because it was so comical. It's like, how do you think?
Right.
The behind the scenes on that, by the way, is great because Joe is very shy. He's a great guy, but I had no time with him. And when you go to these football teams, there's a series of people that are intermediaries. I'm not talking to the players.
No.
There's the PR team, the communications team. These are organizations. And they say to you, that person doesn't want to be involved. And so I say to them, with all due respect, I'll see who wants to be involved. I say yes, but when I get in the room, my job is to convert no's into yeses, where some of the people that thought they wanted nothing to do with me, I'm going to win them over. And the Joe Burrow thing, yes, there was an amazing trick, but getting somebody who, when they sat down in their mind, said 100% no, I'm not getting involved, and then having them not only say yes to what I was going to do, buy in, but then have a monster reaction that's since been viewed hundreds of millions of times and helped change my life. That same thing, that set of skills on how to win people over, influence them, is applicable to everyone in every facet of your life. It works in business if you're doing sales. It works in relationships, whether it's people you know closely and you want to create deeper bonds, or whether it's people you want to win over, whether it's like a romantic sense, friendship sense. It's how do you meet people and connect with them in a deeper way and get them not only to like you, build rapport, but both of those two things are to do what you want them to do. Not in a nefarious way, but think about
Right.
it. I'm a parent. I'm trying to win my kids over. I'm selling them all the time my ideas, which is please do your homework right now, even though you don't want to because there's better things to do. How do you convince them in an effective manner? And that is a form of mentalism, which is knowing how people think and using it to your advantage. That's what I'm doing all the time. And those are the skills you can apply. Going back to what you said with Joe Burrow and all these situations, I have used the running to calm myself and to not think of the finish line, which is when you're at 20 miles
Yep.
and you're miserable,
Yep.
it sounds like 6 miles is so little. It's just 6 miles, man. You've done a 10K before, but in the moment, every step hurts. I'm miserable. I'm puking. I feel terrible. I want to be done now. I want to be on a couch eating ice cream now. What the hell was I thinking doing this race? I am not a superhuman. Like literally, it's the same way that a friend of mine, David Goggins, will say,
Oh, man.
I don't want to be out there running in the rain, in the cold at 4:30 a.m. But the fact that I don't want to do it is why I'm doing it. Because that's where the real training hits. The moments where it becomes hard is where you learn who you really are. When I'm sitting here talking about running, it's easy. Oh yeah, it's fun. I want to get to the moments where I'm in the deepest, darkest place and I'm asking myself, questioning, why am I doing this? Don't want to do it, and I still persevere. That's where you become stronger. It's where you tear the muscle and grow it back stronger. And those skills have allowed me, when I'm in those pressured moments, and that ultras are like something I stand on, where I'm completely calm. And I'm
Interesting.
very aligned, and I'm not going to panic. So the people around me see how calm I am, and I can still keep them within my control.
What you're doing is so stress-packed, almost on purpose.
Right.
You're going in front of this crowd that's like big professional athletes, like all these celebrities, and you're gonna like walk in and impress them and do something that's just unbelievable.
Right.
Is there thrill out of the fact that you know going into that you're gonna be calm and people will see that not only will you perform, but for you, this is what you do. Do you seek these moments out because that is empowering for you?
Man, if we got like into a therapy session of like Freudian, I keep taking big swings at things that I don't know if they're necessarily going to work.
Yeah.
But I think that the audience can sense the danger, the risk.
Yes.
That's what's exciting. And so you can feel the excitement through the camera. It's what captures you. Because I don't know, I can't explain it. It's the audience can know internally that this might have gone wrong and
yes.
it didn't. And that's why you get the big reactions.
So I've done a couple of live speaking engagements, just telling stories to crowds. And I remember I told my production team as we were getting ready to put it together, like, how do you want it to go? How much production value do you want? And I said, I was like, I need the first time I do speaking engagements to be basically just me and a microphone. I want it to be a pure experience because I need to prove to myself that like, I can deliver something that's really engaging without any props, without anything, just me.
Right.
And it was like the sense of, I almost hated myself for doing this because you're setting yourself up, right? I'm going to walk out in front of thousands of people, me and a microphone. I've never done this before.
Right.
It could go horribly wrong. But it's like, I almost felt like the only way to do it was like full send commitment, like commitment to the bit.
You have to.
And I'd go out on stage, and with that sense of commitment, I was able to easily do these shows.
Yeah.
And I think for you, what I see in all these clips of you just like blowing people away, honestly, more than the bit, it is this sense that you are completely committed. And even if it goes wrong, it's like somehow he's going to spin this.
Right.
He's got full command of the room.
People love when it goes wrong. So there's that level of why are those traffic jams where you're like, why was there such a traffic jam? The rubbernecking, right? The human instinct that's in our DNA of liking to gossip and liking to see what's going on with them. Oh, look at that car, holy crap, right? Everyone does it. We're all slowed down. We're on the freaking BQE, and what just happened? Why is, like I-78 is jammed up because one jerk was texting.
Yeah.
And we have to watch that. So that same approach is, again, hardwired in our DNA. So in my show, I'm very keenly aware of moments where I can create stress, confusion, or light chaos. And I can make it so that you forget the things I want you to forget. And then I put the camera on the things I want you to remember. And during the moment where you're recounting what happened, I'm telling the story that you're going to remember in your mind. People don't realize that memory is malleable. So we think of his memory as the same thing as this camera shooting me right now, that we could rewind, play back, and it's it's immutable. It never changes. It's on camera,
Right.
right? It's not. People remember certain things, and they are typically related to emotion. So I'll give you a great example. Eyewitness testimony, which you know more than anyone, is inherently unreliable because when people's cortisol levels, adrenaline, they're in a moment where they just saw the shit go down, their body floods with these emotions and all of these things that they're not used to encountering. For most people, they're not into those situations that are high stress. And now suddenly a face, a color of hair, a height, all of that stuff that's captured in 1 or 2 seconds can be changed, especially if you're interrogated later and asked questions and the investigator uses leading language, right? Oh, so when you saw this guy who was like 6'2", 6'3", I see? Well, I kind of maybe, right? You can start to change what they have, right? Imagine you do a watercolor painting and it's not dry yet. I can start to change what you painted. I'm
Interesting.
narrating the story that you will tell the next person about me. And I will get rid of the parts I don't want, just like an editor clips sections out. And I have it so your memory only remembers the things I want you to tell or the story you tell, because the story you tell about me is what continues. It's what makes me memorable. And anyone that ever walks into a room and is the most memorable person in the room will achieve their goals the most effectively. Just think about it in your head. When you've gone to a party or an event and you've met someone, there's always at an event when you go home and you're talking to your wife or you're talking like, man, did you meet that guy? Yeah, was he? There's always a person who stands out.
Sure.
If it's a good party. Otherwise it sucks. You're like, everyone's boring. But what made that person interesting? Now, I think in a lot of instances, it's the fact that the person who's very interesting isn't a big talker, but they're very interested and they bring out the best in you. And you feel like, man, they were so interested in me and they give good stories. And they ask me questions I'd never been asked before. And that kind of elevates a certain level in you where you get excited to be around them. Some people have a natural charisma and you analyze, what is a natural charisma? What is it that they do when they walk in the room? They approach with confidence. They typically approach not a direct thing. So another thing that is very important, body posture, body positioning, and how you walk up to somebody you don't know instantly puts you at ease or makes you feel ill at ease and like they're intruding your space. If somebody walks up to you too close, whoa, bro, you know,
out.
what are you doing? Chill out. If somebody approaches you quickly and they're talking and they're not slowing down and you don't know when they're gonna leave, then you start getting this feeling of, oh God, am I stuck in this conversation for a while? Versus, and I learned this doing restaurants when I was a kid, if I walk up to you at an angle and it looks like I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and you're seeing one of my eyes, which is again, the way animals react, instead of head on, which scares them, but at a sideways. And if I give you a time constraint, which is, oh, great to meet you. And for me, performing magic, people might not want me there. They don't know who I am, especially at a restaurant where you're having dinner and you're like, who is this kid? And I was 14 and do I have to tip him? Oh my God, do I have any cash on me? All of these things go through your mind. So I have to take away those layers of resistance. And I learned early on what I could do in those moments that applies to everything in life. It's not just about the performance, it's life skills. And I think those life skills translate very effectively into habits for success, no matter what you do.
It seems like you are, I mean, to simplify, extremely perceptive about other people. Like you're picking up cues that maybe to you seem like they could be picked up by a lot of people, but
Right.
Your ability, at least the way you're describing it, to read people really, really quickly is astounding. And I'll say, on a much smaller level, I actually did, when I was in the SEAL teams,
Yep.
I did a lot of the speaking with locals. Basically, we'd be on target, and then at the end of whatever conflict we were in, there'd be an opportunity to speak to people that were in whatever village we were in Afghanistan. And truthfully, you're basically talking to the men,
Right.
and you're trying to discern if they were just shooting at you or
Right.
they weren't. And it's really hard to tell.
Right.
And a lot of times, even with the interpreter, a conversation's not going to get you there.
No.
You're really just trying to gauge how they view me.
Intuition and instinct go a long way, right? If you have a gut feeling, you have to trust it. Then try to verify it. But if you get that gut feeling and you ignore it, like, you know, that like tickling of like, this doesn't feel right. I'm sure in your situation, that's life or death.
Yeah, I mean, this was like relatively safe, you know,
Yeah.
so we're safe at this point. But a lot of times I would pick up very quickly if someone was just positioning themselves in a sort of adversarial way. Like, I'm sure, I'm speaking to the guy who knows this stuff,
Yeah.
but there's a way you stand if you're almost sort of seeking a level of conflict with the person you're with.
Right.
If you're deferential, you're sort of positioning yourself in such a way. But like, I'm coming into the room, I'm decked out in like special operations gear, we've just secured the target, and I'm talking to you. And if you're gonna stand toe to toe with me
Right.
and like look me square in the eyes, pretty much immediately I'm like, well, this is a combatant.
Right.
You know, whereas other people, maybe they're scared or whatever, but it usually comes off very quickly. And then the conversation, to be honest, it wound up being like irrelevant. It's the first like 3 seconds that I'm with somebody. And so for you, I mean, I have no idea if that relates, but are you like reading people and that's basically your tell? Or are you constantly evaluating people, whether it's during a performance or not, like in your life?
Yes.
Are you constantly evaluating? Like, how does that work for you?
So thankfully the stakes are much lower for me. So I don't ever want to put myself on the category of a Navy SEAL defending our country. It's like what I'm doing is entertaining people.
Sure.
And the skills don't generalize. So the next part is people just say, well, if you're this good, why aren't you just winning millions of dollars playing poker?
Oh,
why aren't you
interesting.
like catching, killers? So it's because, again, this is under the guise of entertainment and the skills don't generalize. Very clear cut. Guessing, I'll give a great example. I'm gonna do this in a moment. But if I were to ask at the table and we're playing poker,
Yep.
just look at why the cards right, because I have a series of things that I do, procedures, to narrow the options down and figure out what you thought of that involve me being in charge.
Interesting.
Watch this. Let's just play a fun game.
Okay.
Picture now a card trick. Right now, if I had a deck of cards, and I don't even have one, I could probably get one out of a bag, and you don't have a deck of cards.
A deck of cards.
Right? You've never seen a deck of cards today, have you?
No.
No. So when I was a magician, we'd have to have a deck of cards right now. And I would do the old pick one card,
Sure.
and you'd put it back and I'd find it.
Right.
But I don't have a deck of cards. So let's just pantomime this, because mentalism is about thoughts. I give you an invisible deck.
Okay, got it.
You mix them up. John,
Okay.
shuffle them up. Let's see the skills, okay? And now
All right.
you take those cards, and I want you to do this. I want you to spread them out in front of you. And spreading them out in front of you means you can see all 52.
Yep.
And you can make a conscious decision, which
Okay.
some people would say later, well, he somehow influenced you. He used certain words, maybe used certain hand gestures. Something was already planted in your mind
Okay.
so that you would do my bidding.
Okay.
So I want to make this even more impossible. Take the cards and close them up again. Give one more shuffle just to be safe. I love it. And now you're going to spread them face down, which means you can't see them.
All right.
Which means that right now, if I told you to reach down and pick any card, there's no way that you could be influenced because you don't even know which one it is now. I want you to slowly reach down and maybe go to grab one and go, nah, doesn't feel right. And you maybe jump to another one next to it or this one and just grab one card at random. Now, before you turn over, you grab it out.
Okay.
And are we in agreement? It's absolutely impossible that I could know what you just picked because it's not real. It's an invisible card that you haven't even turned over yet. You don't even know what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So you drop the rest of the cards away, gone. And now something happens that's interesting. You turn the card over, you look at it,
Okay.
okay?
Okay.
Hold it up, and I want you to picture that card right there. Can you see it?
Yep.
Now watch. I didn't influence this in any way, did I? This is your own choice, 100%.
100%.
And I say to you, hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades, there's all the four suits, there's the high cards, the low cards, all of these different cards. And you had said earlier, blackjack, poker,
Yep.
look at that card. Imagine what it looks like. Imagine the jack, queen, and king have more ink because they're very full. They've painted them. Versus, for example, a two only has the two hearts and they go all the way through. And you know what you did? You decided, because poker on the back of the box, ace of spades is the card in your hand, isn't it?
Yeah. What the hell, dude? That's crazy. Yeah, it's the ace of spades.
Ace of spades.
Yeah. It's the
An invisible deck of cards didn't exist. So that, I know
Dude,
it seems.
That's crazy.
Thank you.
I changed my mind like 4 times.
I could tell you did. I saw that, the shifting and the changing, and you're like, I might go with a different. You were thinking of a different spade, but you said, no, I'm going to go back. That has to do with,
Dude,
again,
that's crazy. That's crazy. I was actively trying to subvert you. That's
so
crazy.
I can't do that at a poker table because I can't just tell the guy in front of me, look at your two cards before we get the river, look at me, do this, do that. They're gonna be like, screw you, dude, I'm not doing any of this. Get out of my face. Put on the sunglasses, rock and roll. So in my performance, I'm the director. I get to call the shots.
Wow.
So it doesn't unfortunately work with everything. If it did, it'd be amazing. But to answer your question, I'm not living my life in like brrr mode of like, whoop, that guy. I always think of it as in the Born Identity.
Oh yeah.
When
yeah,
he
yeah.
loses memory and he's in that diner and he doesn't know who he is yet.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he tells the guy next to him, why do I know that guy's 255 and can fight? Why do I know this? Why do I know that right now I know the 4 license plates of the cars when I walked in? Why do I know all this stuff? And he's starting to dawn on him. He's like a secret spy agent.
Yeah.
Badass. So I think it's likened to that, where when I turn it on, I'm hyper focused on what I do and my mission at hand. And the analyzing people very quickly is very, very similar to what you did, except it's done for under the context of entertainment, which is when I'm in a crowd, I'm looking around to see who I think will be great for my next trick when I'm performing. This
okay.
person right now. And if you ask me, why was he so good? People will come up to me at the end of the show and go, why didn't you pick me? And I go, no offense to you. I just, for whatever reason, and it's the intangible, it's the 30 years of training, you just weren't as good as them right now. I thought they would deliver the best reaction and they would mesh with what I wanted. Now in certain rooms, I can't pick the person. You're on TV with 3 hosts, you got to use those 3 hosts. You make the best of a situation. But when I have people to choose from, and if you see me at like a live show,
Yeah.
that's very exciting. And the fact that you like throw frisbees, we pick people randomly. If we're in like an arena, we shoot t-shirts to like the 8th row. Who's got it? Stand up, please. And how could I know who would catch the t-shirt? How could I know who'd catch a frisbee? How could you know any of this stuff? Then I work with those people, and that's what really makes it real, because that's anyone. This is some drunk jerk who's like 8 rows in, who's barely conscious. How in the world did you guess the name of his first crush?
I'm still sort of in shock that you just did. So I'm like thinking through how are you doing this? I realize that there's more to it than like here's how I was pretty good at the reason I was the guy that did a lot of the questioning of the people on site is because I had decent perception. I was pretty good at figuring out who likely had more information, and it would like lead to weapons caches or whatever. So it was just like basically I was successful enough that I kept doing it. So I was pretty perceptive. But like
I think you still are.
Well, thank you. But
yeah.
it's like to be able to break down beyond a gut feeling to like specifics is just where we talked about this thing that you do, when you're making it out, you're very humble about it. Like, you can learn how to do it and whatever it is. But like, no, you can't.
I had to. Like again, I wasn't Spider-Man, bitten by a spider and radioactive and like I changed. It's been trial and error. It's been iteration, and the same thing that has allowed me to go run 153 miles. That, like, how you have children? We were talking about right when I walked in. We had a couple minutes. I came here from the airport talking about our kids, and you want to instill a work ethic in your kids. It's very interesting because being a parent, I think, is my most important job, and I'm assuming that's my immortality. It's like, who are they going to be? Because as soon as you have kids, you start to feel like I'm going to die one day, and this is my future and their future, and it's like it really no greater joy in life. But how do I instill a work ethic in them? Because my kids aren't going to grow up the same as me, and I'm feeling, I don't know what your beginnings were. Mine were very humble, where I had to work really hard, and I was like age 16. I was supporting myself, which I don't wish upon my kids. They'll never know what that means. But I lived on my own, and I had to pay for college, and I had to find an apartment, and like nobody paid for this stuff. So I had to figure life out early, which at the time I felt kind of pissed, because I'm like, all these other kids are going on vacation. They have a car, their parents. I don't have any of that. But now in hindsight, that set me up for success in a huge way. And it made it so I didn't have a safety net. So I had to become the safety net. And I think that there's a level of that toughness you have to either create in yourself, if it's not, and a lot of people are going to have it, because a lot of people listening to this are, hustling, and they might not have any of these things. So I think that deciding on a goal and not giving up it's so much more important than almost natural talent, skill, anything, is persistence. And you saying like, oh, I can't do this, there shouldn't be that word in your vocabulary.
You said something going back to your Spartathlon experience that actually really struck a chord with me. And I'll give you a quick story that I think relates, and I think that it plays into what you just said. So when you did not finish your Spartathlon race, you came back, and you obviously did it, and you successfully completed this.
It ate me alive. Are you kidding me? It killed me.
But you said something to the effect of, when I went into that second attempt, I was prepared to basically die in order to complete this race. So for me, I've had exactly that experience one time, and it changed my life afterwards. When I was in SEAL training, everyone thinks the hard part is at the beginning of training, the famous sort of like hell week, and you're running around on the beach and you're beat down and you're tired. That's bad.
Right.
Not the hardest part. The hardest part comes about halfway through training. It's a 6-month-long course. Halfway through, you're in the underwater phase. And by this point, statistically, virtually everybody in your class is going to graduate, despite the difficulty of this test. It's the moment you all are literally forced to have this moment. And it's horrifying. There's this test called pool competency. They tell you it's just this, you just go in with your scuba tanks and the instructors are going to come down there. You're in the 9-foot section of the pool and you're like crawling around and they're going to come down and just kind of screw with you. And you're going to follow procedures that you're taught to basically, after they finish tumbling you around and turning your air off, you go back on your knees and they're watching you the whole time and you follow these steps. You reach back, you turn on your air, you check your J valve, you check your straps, make sure it's a 3-finger loop here, you check your weight belt. I can still do it now, but it's a procedure that no matter what happens to you underwater, you reset, you follow the procedure. But each problem that they give you, whether it's tying a knot in your hose or whatever it is, gets progressively harder to fix. All fixable problems for 20 minutes. And so each time someone's come down on you, first of all, as they're attacking you, you have to go into the fetal position and just wait. You're not getting air. They're tumbling you around. So you're going about 60 seconds to 90 seconds with no air. And then you need to follow the procedure. So you can see you become more and more hypercapnic.
Right.
You're not breathing. And it's this test of staying calm and following the procedures despite literally being on the precipice of passing out.
Right.
People call it simulated drowning, this test, and you get 4 attempts at it. And so one of the things you got to do is you got to stay calm. And so I went in and I'm doing the test, failed it miserably 4 times in a row. Wasn't even close. Was not even close. Like I actually was the guy that they had to put a pink piece of tape around my ankle, and it wasn't even to humiliate me. I would get so panicked, I would push off the bottom of the pool and go to the surface, but we're breathing mixed gas. And if you do that, you can risk rupturing your lungs with air bubbles.
Okay,
and so you have to be you have to go up at a certain speed. And so there's like standby divers there to keep me from panicking and rocketing to the surface. And so I failed 4 times in a row. And as a result, I actually got rolled out of the class I was in. The class I was with, all my buddies, and they're like, look, we're going to give you one more shot. You're going to leave this class, go to the next class, and you can try again with that class. And so I go to the next class.
That sets you back 6 months?
It actually was just a couple months. They let me start in second phase. But so I go into the next class. And the thing is the students in this class, they've been through the hell week and everything, and they know I'm a rollback.
Yep.
And I sort of took on the role of like, I'm going to be a mentor. Like, yeah, I obviously failed pool competency. We're all going to take it here soon. But I really tried hard to be like a mentor. Like, here's what I experienced. I obviously failed it, but let me give you all the insights I can possibly give you. And everyone's looking at me like, oh, John's got it. Like, he failed, but he's gonna be fine. And so we get to test day, and I failed the first 2 attempts, not out of panic, out of procedural problems. And so I fail on Friday. There's 2 more attempts left, and it's on that Monday. And if I don't pass them, not only will it humiliate me, but I'm dropped from SEAL training.
Yeah.
That weekend was horrible because I'm thinking about this test. On Monday morning, I got to the pool deck and I was so nervous all weekend. And I'm sitting on the pool deck. They make you sit with your back to the pool, and they made me go last that day. And I'm hearing the instructors like ripping kids' hoses. You're like air bubbling up off the pool. Kids are like passing out like red line, and medics running over. It's chaos. And you're just sitting there waiting for your turn. And then when it was my turn, I just had this mental shift occur where I was like, holy shit, I'm gonna fucking die in that pool before I fail this test.
Yeah.
And I got in the water, and it was like calm comes over me. And I begin this test, and it didn't matter how long I went without air. It didn't matter what the problem was. I had fully committed to this concept of I will literally die before I fail this test.
Yeah.
And I passed, and it was so easy. And it showed me that like there's a point where you can convince yourself that your mind can sort of override all the discomfort, and you can basically do whatever you want. And you described when you went and did the Spartathlon the second time, that feeling of, I will die before I don't finish this race.
100%.
And sure enough, you did it. And so do you think that's something everybody can achieve, that level of, I will go full send no matter what? Because I think for you, clearly, you put yourself in pressure situations and you just go for it. Like, I feel like maybe that's something that we have that others don't, or do you think that anyone can tap into that?
That's such a tough question because it's so hard to speak for other people. And where mental toughness comes from. And I think you build it up over time. I don't think you're born with it at all.
Sure.
And it's those failures that reinforce later. Had you gotten it on the first try, where would you be today? Isn't that a funny question to ask yourself?
Yeah.
Would you still be this person? So when I came back the second time, I had this guy who I saw at mile, like, I don't remember what mile it was. I DNF'd at 78. But it was this bald dude. think he was like from Eastern Europe, and he's wearing this thing, and we're in the middle of the night, and I'm a wreck. I'm a wreck, bro. Like, just been puking maybe 100 times, and now I'm writing my DNF speech, which in the parlance of ultra marathoning is did not finish. They don't write a time next to your name, they write DNF, which is so embarrassing and just kills you. And so I've already written my speech, what I'm gonna tell my wife, when I went to Greece and spent all this money, and my friends who were like, dude, how'd you do on that race? And you gotta eat it and tell everyone, well, you gotta have that story of like, I'm gonna learn from this experience and I'm gonna come back stronger, like all that bullshit that no, you should have finished. And so I see this guy and I'm already talking all this stuff like, oh man, I don't have it today. We're at an aid station together, middle of the night. We haven't slept all night. And this guy looks at me, he doesn't really understand English. And his eyes, he's these crazy eyes where they're open. I'll never forget it. He looked at me and he goes, if you cannot run, you walk. If you cannot walk, you crawl. But you never stop. Like a psycho, like a zombie apocalypse. And in the moment, I couldn't digest it, right? I couldn't take that and bottle it up and shoot it into my vein. But slowly after I left, it haunted me.
Yeah.
Because this guy, like what he had in his eyes is what I need to have the next year. And so that like slowly worked into my DNA. And when I got there, I was you on that attempt. When I started, there was no doubt. There's no doubt.
Yep.
I am finishing this thing no matter what. And when the voice enters my head that says you aren't finishing, what are you talking about? You don't exist. Gone. We go right back to the mindset. I'm hardened steel, titanium, where I'm finishing no matter what. And if that means I'm walking the next 24 hours, puking with a splint on my leg, I'm finishing this race because now this is life or death.
That's incredible. Yeah, it's funny. I rarely meet people that have had a comparable experience to what I described with pool comp, but it's so clear, like for you, this is like a defining moment. And so if people understand that in their own lives, that if your thing is, oh man, I really want to start a business. Oh man, I really want to run a Spartathlon or be a SEAL or whatever it is, whatever someone's goal is, however big or small, if the stakes were as big as they could possibly be, you could do it.
Right.
Or you could die trying. That's the level of commitment that some people need to understand goes into success. It's a compounding effect.
Right.
As soon as I became a SEAL, it showed me that I now have the capacity to set big goals and achieve them, not be someone who claims to want to do things, but then write the DNF story of why I never actually did it.
Right. And that knowledge, that exact way you said, the knowledge that you did it now changes the way your mind is wired. Because now you go, oh my God, what else could I do? And now if I set my mind to it, you start to believe in yourself in a certain way, and that becomes self-fulfilling. So I think for whatever people do, again, if it's inspirational messaging, like my book is designed to be motivational, but it's designed to be action-oriented. Like I want to teach people.
Actually, I'll hold it up while you're talking.
How to take action. So like literally the words I used, and I thought about this a lot, was proven habits for success. Because a lot of people think you're going to get this book is that I'm going to teach you magic tricks or mentalism tricks. And the real talk is you can find those elsewhere. So the book is not going to teach you tricks. I need everyone to know because they're going to buy it and be like, dude, where do you teach me what Joe Burrow, how the hell does he throw the ball? I go, I'm not going to teach you how I do the tricks, but knowing what somebody who might have control of your life, knowing when to approach your boss, what to say, and how to get the raise that you've been working for the last 2 years, what if you could do that and up your chances by 10, 20, 30, 40% of doing that and getting them to do what you want? That, to me, is worth a couple bucks. That's worth your time, which is even more valuable than the amount of money for the book to read it. And we got a lot of fun stories baked in there as well from my crazy life.
This book really captures the essence of someone who has put themselves in highly stressful situations and persevered, and they've lived a life of basically pretending that everything is a must succeed. And how to basically, harness your mind. And in some ways, learn how to read other people and influence other people. But this is a very powerful, I'm going to call it a self-help book, because to me, this is like practically a Bible of how to motivate and how to be the best version of yourself. So this is an amazing book. You got to check it out. Read your mind.
Your fellow Navy SEAL, David Goggins, gave me the quote on the top, which says, learn to master the most powerful weapon, your mind, which encapsulates what the entire book is all about, which is your mind controls your success. Whatever success is defined for you, which for everyone is different. Maybe it's monetary, maybe it's romantic, maybe it's want to have kids, maybe it's like, I just want to do something I'm not doing now. And how do you get from step A to B to C? And I know that sounds so silly, but in almost every instance, other people are involved in that journey. And my whole training has been how to win over people, how to know what they're thinking, how to influence them, right? How to get rid of the fear of rejection and failure, which is a huge part of my book, which is mostly what holds people back. That is such a huge factor. And I learned that at a young age, doing like restaurant magic and all those little things I learned how to iterate and improve. I want to give you decades of the mistakes I made, but I want to distill out of them what you can do to fast track your success.
That's amazing. This is awesome.
Let me ask you a question, John. If I told you right now, okay, the book is in your hand,
Yep.
and I were to ask you to flip to any page you wanted, impulsive, spontaneous, in my book, any page you wanted, and look at it and then pick any word, and then I try to guess the word. On the surface, that seems crazy, right? That seems amazing.
Yeah.
But I'm watching this like somebody at home, and I want to go to the skeptic, not the normal person, but the outlier, the 1 out of 100 who goes, yo, but he wrote the book. I wrote the book. So what if I have a photographic memory? What if I know it's on every single page? And if I could see what page you're on, I could say, right, that could have happened. That's a plausible but very improbable solution. So what if instead of doing that, because this is my book,
Right.
Can we just see this room? This is, for, by the way, shout out to your team, sick. The setup here is incredible.
It is pretty good.
For this interview, amazing. I've been to a lot of interviews and this might take the cake.
All right.
Hundreds and hundreds of books, probably thousands.
Yeah.
So if I were to instead ask you to walk up to any one of these books, now not physically, but mentally, if I would have said, walk up to any book in this room, grab it, walk up, and I want you to flip it open to any page, to look at that page, and to go back and forth, and my eyes are closed, and stop at any word. Can you see this happening? Close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, envision that occurring. Did you just play it out?
Yep.
Okay. Open your eyes. Be honest, right? These people trust you. They've seen you for years. This isn't staged. This isn't set up. There is no conceivable way I could know what you would have done. You didn't even know what you were going to do before I asked you to.
Yeah, fair.
When people flip, some people will find a specific page that has a meaning to them. Like maybe a kid's birthday, maybe it's January 24th, so you go to 124 to be fun about it. Or some people just flip to a random page. Now watch, I watched to see the reaction. I don't think you got nostalgic. Personal reference, the page you picked, it doesn't have a meaning to you, does it?
No.
I didn't think so. I didn't see it that way. I also see it as when you just flip, you go, stop. You were quick. You felt rushed, so you rushed. I could see it. You feel a little tense. So some people would, and they would have gone longer in the book. Again, you don't have to tell me this. Do we have a marker? Do we have something we could write with?
I have a pen.
A pen? Okay, I'm gonna close. Is that your pen?
It is my pen.
Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes, and I want you to do this close to your body and on the palm of your hand, and make sure there's no way I could see this and there's no camera behind you. Does it write? Does the pen write?
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna close my eyes. On the palm of your hand with no camera, nothing behind you, write as big as you can what page number you went to in the book. When you're done, blow on it, put it close to your chest. Nobody could have seen that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Can I open my eyes?
Yep.
My gut says, again, I'm fishing. Did I get a bite? Yes. I reel it in. I think you went with an earlier page. My gut says, because I was seeing what you would do, I think it was 2 digits. Now I ask myself, look at the smile, the laugh, you might as well have said yes. So I keep going. It's so unlikely that you would have done the first 30 or 40 pages because it's too, you can't even flip the page. You open a book and you go, it's already off your thumb before I've even got to page 50. So now what feels like a number that's got like some text, but not, and I think that you would have done right the backward hat, couple buttons open, showing some chest hair. He's more of an odd type of guy than an even. You're not a by the book. I think you might have thought of the number, chuckled, and been like inappropriate. So you wouldn't have done 69, even though that's so funny. You did 67, didn't you? Can we see your hand? Is the number 67?
Yeah. Dude, that's insane. What, dude? How?
Any book, any page, but any word is near infinite. I don't want you to write anything. People are going to say he's got a trick hand, he's got a trick pen. This is your stuff.
Yeah,
don't
this
write
is
down a
legitimate.
thing. Whatever word you saw in your mind in a book, not a real book, you imagine. Throw the pen away. I want you to count without using your fingers,
Okay.
to count the number of letters to yourself, not out loud, in the word you selected, just to yourself. Count it to yourself. Don't say it out loud at the end. Some people, right when they get it, they say it. All right. No, maybe.
I have to double check. Hold on.
Oh, don't even say that. Now you gave so much away. The double check is always an indicator of a longer word. No one double checks a word. Open your eyes.
Okay.
No one double checks a word that's 5 letters or less. No one. So now we know it's longer. Also, you probably would have done a longer word. Nobody does and, the, he, she, if.
No.
Under this level of pressure, no way. We're balling, baby. I think he did a longer word. I think this place, it's got this ambiance of like gravity. And you know, some of these books are probably hundreds of years old. Okay, think of the word. You counted twice. Most people, when they count the second time, they realize they got it wrong, and they realize, oh crap, I counted wrong the first time, and you did that. But they usually count longer and then shorter, and that's what you did. And my gut says you were like, no, it's not. You thought it was 9, but it's actually 8 letters, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what happened in your mind. That's not even. And imagine that you write down the word. You're not going to write a thing. I want this to be all in your mind. You write down 8 letters, like hangman.
Yep.
You reach over and you just go back and forth, and you don't know why, but you stop on one letter and you circle that one letter. You circle one letter somewhere in the word.
Got it.
Did you do it? In the word is how I cue you. When I say that, almost nobody does the first letter. The first letter will give away the rest of the word for a lot of people. And then also in makes it feel like it should be in between. You didn't do the first letter, did you? No, see, I was trying to guide you. And then a lot of people will avoid the vowels because we know there's vowels. You didn't do a vowel, did you? So again, we're going down that path. And now you jump back and forth. You're like, do I do this one? And my gut said you were about to do a letter, but and you jumped over. The letter you're thinking of, no, I don't think, it's not in the word more than once, is it?
It is.
It is, right? It is, because you jump between the two of them.
But yeah.
And what's weird is the first letter you were about to circle, but you didn't. You were going to do a T, and you didn't. You're thinking of an S, aren't you?
Yes.
Swear to them. There's no setup here. This is not stage.
If you wrote this is going to be
literally, we have
mind-blowing.
a book, a room with hundreds of books, thousands of books. You imagine in your mind picking one up, opening it up, and going to any word. Close your eyes. Can you cover them with your hand, please? I want to show them at home because people will say later that I changed what I wrote somehow.
All right.
His eyes are covered. Can we see this from any camera or no? Have we seen one? Open your eyes. What are you picturing in your mind? You flipped an invisible book to page 67. You saw hundreds of words. You stopped. One of them jumped out at you. What was that word?
Chastise.
Chastise.
What the hell, dude? That's such a random word. That's crazy. This is not staged. This is crazy. That's crazy. I picked that because that's the most bizarre word I could think of. That's crazy, man. I don't even know what to say. I'm like looking at other people. Like I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. That is, I got to be honest. I don't even know what to say. I'm shocked. I knew you probably would be able to do this, but this is not set up. But he walked in, and within 2 minutes we were filming. This is, I'm blown away.
Create memorable moments that people take and the stories they tell. And you could chastise me, but you got a story that's going to live in your brain for a while. That's my goal. Is I just put a splinter in your brain.
Oh my
that you're going to try to
God.
pick out for years and be like, how did he know? And I wasn't even going to do page 67. I did that at the last minute. I changed.
That is so wild. What was like your first time doing this? Like your first big moment of big trick with a big audience, and you nailed it.
So I think certain things in life can't be bought, but have to be earned.
Sure.
The same way when you're in SEALs training, there's no check you can write to get that, right? So certain things in life you really have to earn. And so when I did that show, America's Got Talent,
Yeah.
I never expected to go as far as I did. I was truly, this isn't like, oh, this false humility. Every round I was in, I gave it my all, and I didn't think what I'm going to do next. It's just like when I hear wide receivers who at tight ends, when they say, what do you focus on when the ball gets thrown your way? Catching it. You do not think of what you're going to do after you catch the ball or you drop the ball. And so my mindset every single time was this, I'm going to just do everything I can in this round, kill it. And that's it. I never saw, and then, there was no and then, which I think is a powerful thing to do, because as soon as you start thinking and then, you start getting hung up and you drop the ball. So where do I go with this? Every round, at the end of it, it was the highs and lows were insane. Because the highs were like, I just made it through. The lows were like, oh crap, I didn't plan what I'm going to do next round, which might be in a week or two. It's got to be better than this. So it was like these two mixed emotions. So when I got to the finale, this was like the heyday of the show in linear TV, which now people are like, TV, where do I watch TV? Online? This is when like 15 million people would tune in live. Radio City Music Hall, live. That means I am on a stage, Radio City Music, there's 6,000 people in the audience, and this is airing to everyone live, which means if you screw up, ain't no safety net. You don't get caught. You don't go, cut. It's not going right. So if chastise isn't the word, if you didn't think of the letter S, if none of those things happened, I can't get out of it.
Oh
so
my gosh,
finale,
that's intense.
That was one of those moments that was life-changing.
Yeah, I believe it.
Yeah.
I believe it. So you've accomplished so much, and you clearly are somebody that is taking big swings, like you've said. Do you have any sort of like bucket list life items that still are like, I really want to accomplish that at some point?
It's funny you think that, because I think I'm just starting. So like in my mind, I'm so forward facing, and it's something I tell myself on a regular basis to like live in the moment, because it's always like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And that's a problem in life, because when you do earn certain things or have like pinch me moments, I have pinch me moments where I'm like in the room with Steven Spielberg or LeBron, and like you just have this moment of like, dude, just think back to you 20 years ago. If you could go in a time machine, meet yourself, like Marty McFly, and be like, you're not going to believe what you're going to do in 10 years or 20 years. But there's a lot of things. Having my own series, I'm so excited about that. That's been years and years and years in the making, of having not just all these clips that you see, but a show that you get to see who I am, not just what I do.
Right.
So you get to get a feeling for like, what am I? Who am I? What makes me tick? And hopefully the book too, which is for years something I didn't feel confident to write a book, because I'm like, what story do I have to tell, man? Like, I do these cool tricks, that's awesome, but I started to really see that I think some of the things that I do in my life that are surrounding the mentalism are the actual hidden tricks and tips for success. This whole thing, mentalism, is very fresh and new. It's been around for 100+ years, but I think people are just getting this awareness of it. And it's because of the sports teams, it's because of these things, but they're starting to see like, this isn't magic. This is really cool and different, and it captivates people's imaginations. And I'm trying to elevate the field, not just for myself, but like the other people that do it. It's kind of like the rising tide lifts all ships. It's good for my industry, it's good for us, and it makes what I do like cool and innovative. And I like the fact that I'm being tied to it, where I want to be the name brand for this art. When you ask somebody in 5 years, who's your favorite mentalist? If you ask them that today, the question is, what's a mentalist? In 5 years, if I've done my job right, the instant answer to that question, you mean like O's the mentalist? Like the Google, the Kleenex, you create the moniker and the brand, because you've aligned yourself so closely with what this is that people associate you with it.
Dude, on that note, where's your book? That's amazing. We got to make sure that if you want more insights from the world's greatest mentalist, check out Read Your Mind. It's his new book by Oz Perlman. This is incredible. It has all those tips, tricks, secrets, mental hacks, you name it. You got to go check it out. Thank you so much for being on here. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks,
Take care,
man. Thank you.
Seriously, mind blown. This is, I don't even know what this is. Chastise 67, crazy. Thank you, Oz.
You got it.
Today, I'm going to share 3 little-known, ridiculous backstories of 3 very famous people. And the last one has a very satisfying ending. But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right place, because that's all we do, and we upload 2 or 3 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please replace the like button's Shroot Bucks with Stanley Nichols. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories. In 1971, a 19-year-old Irishman named William began studying physics and computer science at a university in Belfast, Northern Ireland. While he was certainly smart enough to complete the 4-year degree, after 1 year of being in the school, he decided to drop out because he felt like this was not the path he wanted to be on. So he moved back home to a town about 30 minutes north of Belfast, where he got a job as a forklift driver and truck driver for the Guinness Beer Factory. And while he loved this job, he still felt like this was not the path for him. He needed to do something more with his life. And so he decided he would pursue what two of his siblings had gone on to do, which was to become a school teacher. He had always admired his school teachers growing up, and he idolized his two siblings that had become teachers, and so it felt like the right fit. And so William applied to a 4-year teaching college in Newcastle in England, and after he was accepted, he flew to England, he got set up, and then he began his studies. The first year was great. He loved what he was doing. He did feel like this is the right fit, and he was getting good grades. Everything was going exactly to plan. But then year 2 happened, and everything went off the rails. A requirement to graduate from this 4-year teaching college was all the aspiring teachers starting in their second year had to go teach real students real lessons. They basically had to go to high schools and elementary schools and fill in for the real teacher and give a real lesson. And they were scored on their ability to do that. But all the aspiring teachers knew that when you gave these real lessons to real students, what really ended up happening was the students did not take the aspiring teachers seriously. They viewed them as kind of like substitute teachers, and so they didn't respect them and they didn't listen to them. And so typically these real teaching sessions just turned into the aspiring teachers desperately trying to calm down their pupils long enough to get them to listen to their lesson plan for just 1 second. But normally it didn't work out, and before long the day was over and nothing was really accomplished. So in William's second year, when it was his turn to go over to a high school and administer his lesson plan, he went over there knowing what he was up against. He did not really expect it to go well. But he decided he would go in there with a positive attitude and he would try to do his best. But as soon as he walked into his classroom, he immediately could tell he was going to be overwhelmed. Everybody's standing up and talking amongst themselves, and they turn around and they see William walking in, and they have this moment of realization that their real teacher is not going to be teaching them that day. It's going to be this substitute, William, and they all kind of gleefully began laughing and joking, and they just turned their backs on William and kept talking amongst themselves. And so William goes inside, he puts his stuff on the desk, and he attempts to get the class to listen to him by saying, "Hey everyone, come on, sit down, time to listen up, I'm your new teacher for the day." But the kids just were not listening. And so finally, William, who was a really big guy, he was 6'4", he was in great shape, he kind of postured himself and then yelled at the class, "Sit down right now." And at this, the class did turn around and looked at William and kind of sized him up, and most of them decided, okay, it's time to sit down. And so 99% of the class goes quiet and sits down except for one kid. It was this 15-year-old boy who was at the back of the room, and he was standing up defiant with his arms crossed, staring at William with a smirk on his face. And all around him, all his cronies were sitting down looking up at him, laughing and kind of looking up at William and laughing at him, knowing that a confrontation was about to ensue. And so William is staring at this kid, trying to get him to just sit without saying anything, and this kid is just mean-mugging him with his arms crossed, and nothing's happening. And so William walks right up to him and kind of leans over his shoulder and says, "You need to go out in the hallway right now. I will meet you out there." And then William turned around and started walking back towards the front of the room, expecting this to have worked, that this 15-year-old kid would have just followed right along and he'd walk right out to the hallway and that would be that. But when he turned back around again, the 15-year-old kid had not moved. He was still standing in the back of the classroom, arms crossed, staring up at William, basically saying, "Make me." And at this, William lost his mind. He was so mad and so frustrated at how unbelievably disrespectful this kid was being, and really the whole class was being to him, that he just kind of lost it. And he ran up to this kid in the back of the room and he gets right up in his face. And remember, William is 6'4". He's a big guy. And he gets right in the kid's face and he's like, "Get out in the hall right now." And this kid doesn't flinch. Instead, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a knife and he holds it right up against William. And William, without any hesitation, just winds up and blasts this kid across the side of the head, sending him flying over a kid sitting at a desk. He goes flying over this kid and crumples into the corner. And then when he stands up, he drops the knife and puts his hands up and he's like, okay, I'll go out in the hall. And William's like, go out in the hall right now. And so the kid ran out of the classroom. He goes out into the hall and the whole class is totally silent. No one even wants to look up at William. They're all kind of just looking down at their desk, trying to be as quiet as possible. And William walks back to the front of the class and proceeds to teach the rest of the lesson. As soon as the high school learned that this aspiring teacher, William, had basically knocked out one of their students, even though it seemed like it might have been a little bit deserved, they immediately told the teacher's college, and the teacher's college immediately expelled William. And so now William is suddenly jobless and he's kind of lost again in the world. He doesn't know what he wants to do now because he really had committed to being a teacher. And so he goes back to his home in Northern Ireland and he begins thinking about, what is he going to do next? And he keeps having this thought that he should pursue this thing that he's always been interested in, but he had never taken seriously because it felt so risky. But now that basically everything in his life had fallen apart, he had nothing to lose. So he decided, what the heck, I will do the thing that I've always wanted to do. And that was stage acting. And so he went and auditioned with a local theater company in Belfast. He was accepted into the theater troupe. And then 4 years later, he was discovered performing on stage by a Hollywood filmmaker. And they cast him in a movie, and the rest, as they say, is history. William Neeson, better known as Liam Neeson, would go on to star in dozens of huge movies and TV shows, and he's probably best known for his epic role in the movie Taken, where he is this CIA operative with a particular set of skills, and in this movie, he punches a lot of people in the face, just like when he was a teacher. In 1963, when Tim Dick was just 10 years old, he went over to his friend's house and he snuck a bottle of whiskey from one of their shelves. He pulled it out and he poured himself a full glass to the brim with whiskey, and then he downed it in one huge gulp. Tim had grown up idolizing cowboys on TV, and every time he watched them, they would come galloping into some town, they would go into the saloon, and they would sit at the bar just throwing back shots of whiskey. And so Tim always assumed whiskey must be this totally amazing, refreshing drink for these guys to be drinking it out in the heat of the desert. But unfortunately for Tim, after he slugged this huge glass of whiskey, it was not refreshing. It tasted like gasoline and his chest felt like it was on fire. But instead of being turned off by alcohol and waiting until he was older and of age to try it again, Tim instead thought, you know what? The next time I have whiskey, I just need to water it down a little bit. And so for the next year, Tim continued to periodically sneak whiskey out of his friends' cabinets, and he would drink this watered down whiskey. And then, when he turned 11 years old, his father, who he was very close with, died tragically in a car accident. And Tim really didn't have a good way to cope with the grief of losing his father, and so he turned to drinking even more than he already was. And before long, Tim was like this young kid who basically was an alcoholic. But he hid it extremely well. He graduated high school, he graduated college, and really nobody knew he was drinking as much as he was. But after he graduated college and he was living on his own in Michigan, there was no structure in place or person in place to stop Tim from going overboard with his substance abuse. And so not only did his drinking get completely out of control, but he began using and selling drugs, namely cocaine. In 1978, when Tim was 25 years old, he and his drug dealing partner were scheduled to take part in the biggest drug deal of their careers. They would be selling about 1.5 pounds of cocaine to a guy named Michael Pfeiffer, and he'd be buying it for $42,000, which when you adjust that for inflation would be like buying it for $175,000 in 2021. Tim and his partner were very excited about all this money they were going to make, but they were equally worried about the transaction. A lot can go wrong. And so Tim decided, in order to mitigate their nerves and kind of make this a safer drug deal, he decided they would do the transaction inside of a public airport, because Tim had seen that done on TV and believed that would give them an additional layer of safety. And so on the day this deal is going to take place, Tim takes the 1.5 pounds of cocaine, he puts it inside of a brown Adidas gym bag, and he also throws a key lock inside of this bag. He zips it up, he walks outside, he dumps the bag in the back of his car, and he drives to the Kalamazoo International Airport in Michigan. When he gets there, he parks in the big parking lot right outside of the front doors, and as soon as he's parked, he goes around to the back of his car, he pulls out this brown Adidas bag, he throws it over his shoulder, shuts his trunk, and then he waits for his partner to show up. A couple of minutes later, right on time, his partner pulls into the lot, he parks nearby, and then the two of them very casually begin walking towards the front doors of this airport. They walk up the steps, they go in the front doors, and as soon as they're inside, they're looking around, and they find Michael Pfeiffer. He's standing up against the wall right in the area he had said he would be. And so without making any sort of contact with Michael, Tim and his partner turn the corner and they go into a nearby locker room. Once they're inside, Tim pulls the lock out of the brown bag, and then he puts the bag with the drugs in it inside of a locker. He shuts it and then uses the lock he had just pulled out to lock the locker. And then he and his partner leave the locker room. As soon as they go out into the main terminal, they start walking over towards Michael Pfeiffer. And as they get closer and closer, Tim's partner breaks off and goes to a bench on the other side of the terminal. And Tim continues walking on right up to Michael. And then when he reaches Michael, he very discreetly hands him the key to the lock on the locker. And he tells him which locker number the drugs are in. Michael doesn't say anything. He takes the key and he heads off to the locker room. Tim turns and he goes over to his partner and he sits down on the bench and waits. Meanwhile, Michael goes inside the locker room. He uses the key. He opens up the lock. He opens the locker up. He checks to make sure the drugs are still there. They are. As soon as that's confirmed, he takes the bag, he throws it over his shoulder, and he walks back out to the main terminal to meet up with Tim and his partner. Tim and his partner are sitting on the bench. They see Michael coming out of the locker room, and they're expecting Michael to walk over and basically hand them a bag full of $42,000. But instead, Michael walks up to them and draws a gun and points it at them and says, "I'm a police officer, you're under arrest." It would turn out this was a sting operation. Michael Pfeiffer, the undercover police officer, had been following around Tim and his partner for months. In Michigan at the time, if you were caught trying to sell 650 grams or more of cocaine, there was an automatic penalty of a life sentence. And Tim and his partner had just been arrested trying to sell more than 650 grams of cocaine. And so facing a life sentence, Tim took a deal that gave him a lesser sentence in exchange for information about other drug dealers. And so Tim would ultimately serve 2 years and 4 months in a federal penitentiary before he was released. Tim would say his time in prison was absolutely miserable, but it was necessary. It matured him in a major way, and it honed his sense of humor. Tim was always a very funny guy. He was always the class clown and the guy goofing around. But in prison, he found it a very difficult task to get these hardened prisoners and prison guards to laugh at his jokes. But eventually, with enough practice and repetition, he could get anybody in that prison to laugh at him. And so by the time he got out, he was like an amazing comedian. And so he decided, you know what? Why don't I pursue a career in comedy? 4 years later, Tim Dick, better known as Tim Allen, landed the starring role on the hit TV show Home Improvement. And from there, he starred in dozens more movies and TV shows, but he's probably best known for his voice acting in the very popular movie series Toy Story, where he plays Buzz Lightyear. Today, Tim is sober and has been for decades. In 1964, during his final semester of college in Wisconsin, a 21-year-old man named Harry decided to take an acting class. He believed it would be an easy A, and he'd always been pretty shy, and so he figured this class might be able to help him get over that. But this class wound up having a much larger impact on Harry's life than he ever could have imagined. Not only did he meet his future wife in this class, but he also realized he loved acting, something he never thought he would like, and he decided after college that that was the thing he was going to pursue. And so after he graduates later that year, he and his girlfriend get married, and then they fly out to Hollywood, California, where Harry auditions for Columbia Pictures' New Talent Program, which is basically this program that's designed to help new actors and actresses get parts in Hollywood, because it's so hard to do that. And so he's accepted into this program. He signs a contract with them that pays him almost nothing. And right away, they start shopping him around for different parts in TV shows and movies, but nobody is interested in Harry. Nobody. The only roles he was getting were incredibly minor and usually non-speaking, and so it was really not advancing his career. Then, in 1966, so 2 years after he and his wife had arrived in Hollywood, Harry received what seemed like his first big break. He was offered a speaking role in a movie. Although it was a very minor role, it was a 60-second bit where Harry basically walked on screen in this hotel, and he started calling out for a particular guest. And when he finds this guest, he walks up and gives him a piece of paper, and then he leaves. So it's a forgettable scene, but it's a real scene in a real movie. And so this was a big deal for Harry. And so after Harry goes over to the studio and he films this whole scene and it's all done, he goes back over to the headquarters of the New Talent Program at Columbia Pictures. And as soon as he goes inside, one of the producers that was in charge of this New Talent Program, who had apparently had a chance already to see this 60-second scene in this movie that Harry was in, he calls Harry over and asks him to go up to his office for a second. So the pair go up to his office, they both sit down, and the guy looks at him and says, "Look, I just gotta shoot you straight here. You're not gonna make it in Hollywood. You're not gonna be a movie star." When Tony Curtis was told to carry groceries across this room in one of his first movies, everybody knew right away as he's carrying those groceries that guy, he's going to be a movie star. You could see it in the scene, even though all he was doing was carrying groceries. And when you did your scene as the bellhop walking around the hotel, I just didn't see it. You don't have the X factor. You're not going to be a movie star. For reference, Tony Curtis, the guy this producer was referencing, was a huge movie star in the 1950s and 1960s. And so Harry, after getting this horrible comment made about him, he pauses for a second, and then he leans across the table and looks at this producer and squints his eyes and says, "You know, if Tony was such a good actor, shouldn't we have believed he was just a grocery delivery boy, not a movie star? And at this totally smart aleck remark, the producer fired Harry on the spot. Harry would go on to sign a similar new talent program deal with Universal Studios, but again, he could not get a real part to save his life. And the feedback he finally got was, Harry, you're just not pretty enough and you're not really that talented. By the mid-1970s, Harry was in his mid-30s, and while he still aspired to be an actor and wanted to be an actor, he was making almost no money from acting. And so he decided, instead of acting, he was going to become a carpenter. That was going to be his full-time job, despite the fact he knew nothing about carpentry. And so he literally, just because he has this interest in carpentry, goes to the library and checks out all these how to be a carpenter books. And over the next couple of weeks, he studies these books and does a couple projects around his own house. And then finally, he just felt confident enough, or he was just desperate enough for money, that he began going around to his network and asking people in Hollywood if they needed some woodworking, if they needed help from a carpenter. And surprisingly, lots of people took him up on his offer and they hired him to be their carpenter. And before long, Harry was dubbed the Carpenter to the Stars, which was kind of ironic because he actually was not a very good carpenter, and he was regularly seen on the job, literally holding a book, teaching him how to be a carpenter while doing the carpentry with his other hand. In 1976, Harry was a full-fledged carpenter and had been for about a year when one of his very close friends named Fred Roos, who was a casting director and film producer, gave him a call and told him he had a very unique opportunity for him. Now, at this point, Harry was not looking for any more acting roles. He kind of figured that that ship has sailed, even though he wishes he could be an actor. At this point, he had a wife, he had 2 sons, and so he's thinking, I gotta just keep doing this carpentry thing because I gotta pay the bills. So he says to Fred, I appreciate the offer of whatever this is, but if it has to do with acting, I'm just not interested. And Fred, who was one of the very few people in Hollywood who fundamentally believed Harry was destined to be a star, told Harry, no, this is different. This is not a pure go out and try out for the part and hope for the best. This is like put yourself in a good position and maybe somebody will discover you're as talented as you really are. And so Harry's like, okay, tell me about this opportunity. I'm interested. And so Fred explained there was this really talented and eccentric film director who was trying to cast an upcoming movie. And the way he went about casting for movies was a little bit strange. Instead of having each of the actors and actresses show up and individually audition for their parts, he would group batches of actors and actresses and he would have them audition as a group, because that way he could tell if there was chemistry amongst some of the actors and actresses, and he could gauge their individual talent. And so he had all these groups already planned out, but one of the groups was missing one male actor. Somebody had dropped out at the last minute and was not going to be there on the day of the audition. And so when Fred Roos heard through the grapevine that this director was going to be short this one person, he immediately reached out to the director and said, hey, I got your guy. There's this guy, Harry. He's done a little bit of acting. He's incredibly talented. You got to give him a chance. At the minimum, he can come in there and he can at least just read the lines and help you do this audition. But I know he's available that day and I know he would love to help. And so this director tells Fred, okay, thank you. I'd love to have him come down, but stress to him, he is not auditioning for any part in this movie. I'm not bringing in some person and just throwing them in. It takes me a long time to find people that I want to audition, and he is not one of them. He is just there to facilitate the audition. He's just going to read the lines so the other people in his group can do their audition. And so after Fred stopped explaining the situation, Harry was actually kind of annoyed. He was annoyed that Fred had basically already volunteered him, and so he couldn't really even say no without making Fred look bad. And he didn't like the idea that this was basically a waste of his time. He was being asked to go read lines but not even try out. So how was this even an opportunity? But Fred told him, look, worst case scenario, you meet some pretty powerful people in Hollywood. This director's a big deal. The people there are going to be big deals in Hollywood. So you'll meet them and maybe they will recognize your talent. Or maybe you get some new clients for your carpentry business. So no matter what, you get something out of it. So finally, Harry says, okay, fine, I'll go do this thing. And so Harry goes to this audition, he's handed the script, and he's reminded repeatedly to not attempt to audition. Don't try to act, just read the lines. I don't care if you're monotone, you just read these lines because you're not auditioning. Everybody else is, you're not. Is that clear? And Harry's like, yes. I get it. I'm just reading the lines. And so Harry sits down and he starts reading the lines and he's trying to do what they told him to do, but the way he was actually feeling and his actual personality began seeping through. He started coming off as this really grumpy and sarcastic guy that just didn't care about anybody there. He was just totally bitter that he was in the situation he was in. And apparently, this is exactly what the director was looking for in one of the characters he was trying to cast. That kind of nonchalant, bravado, macho, alpha type guy who just didn't care about anybody. And so over the course of the day, as he's reading the script over and over again, not caring at all about how he's performing, he's just simply reading these lines and just being himself. He was actually doing this amazing job portraying one of the characters. And so they let Harry go the whole day. No one told him they were looking at him as a potential character. And then at the end of the day, when Harry was about to just throw the script in the trash and leave without talking to anyone, the film director, better known as George Lucas, walks up to Harry, better known as Harrison Ford, and says, wait a minute. I was wrong. You are perfect for this movie, Star Wars. You need to play Han Solo. And so Harrison Ford said, all right, I'll play Han Solo. And that role as Han Solo propelled Harrison Ford into the megastar that we know him as today. A few years after Harrison had starred in Star Wars and he was this total A-list celebrity, he was at a Hollywood studio in one of their restaurants when one of the waiters walked over to him with the silver tray, and on this silver tray was a single business card. So Harrison reaches over, he grabs the business card, the waiter walks away, and he looks at the card, and handwritten on it is the phrase, I missed my bet. And he flipped the card over, and it was the name of that producer from the new talent program that had called Harry into his office and said, you're never going to make it in Hollywood and you're fired. It was that guy, and he had apparently sent the waiter over to make amends because he was eating lunch in the same restaurant. And so Harrison would later say in interviews that at the time he got this card, and to this day that he was doing this interview, he said it gave him immense pleasure that when he looked up from this business card and he understood the situation, he knows this guy's in the room somewhere, as he looked around the room, he couldn't recognize the guy because he didn't know what he looked like. He was a nobody. And so instead of wasting any more time looking for this producer, he just looked at the card, chucked it, and went back to eating his lunch. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments section what it is and where you found it. So give us the timestamp. And if you're the first to do that, we'll pin you at the top of the comments section. If you got something out of today's episode and you haven't done this already, please replace the like button's Shroot Bucks with Stanley Nichols. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly 2 or 3 video uploads. We are now selling merchandise like flannels and hats and mugs and sweatshirts and all sorts of stuff. If you're interested in buying official MrBallen merch, go to shopmrballen.com, and to learn about upcoming deals and promotions, check out our shop's Instagram page. The username is shopmrballen. If you want to get in touch with me, you can direct message me on Instagram or on Twitter. My username for both platforms is the same. It's johnballen416. I also have a ton of content over on TikTok where my username is MrBallen. We also have a second YouTube channel called MrBallen Shorts where we post random short videos and lost episodes. If you have a story suggestion, please submit it to our subreddit just called MrBallen. It's linked in the description below. So whether I see you on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, YouTube, or some combination, just know that I really appreciate your support. And until next time, that's going to do it. See ya.